Welcome to the inner lens, where we look inward, not to fix, but to understand. What if I told you that your greatest enemy isn't lack of talent, opportunity, or even bad luck? What if the real culprit behind your unrealized potential is staring back at you in the mirror? We've all witnessed it. The gifted student who forgets to study before crucial exams, the talented artist who never quite finishes their masterpiece, the capable professional who consistently arrives unprepared to career-defining meetings. These aren't mere coincidences or character flaws. They're symptoms of a sophisticated psychological strategy called self-handicapping. And according to groundbreaking research from Stanford University published in September 2025, it's far more calculated than we ever imagined. Self-handicapping is the art of building your own prison while convincing yourself you're merely resting behind temporary shelter. Psychologists Stephen Berglass and Edward Jones first identified this phenomenon, describing how self-handicappers reach out for impediments, exaggerate handicaps, and embrace any factor reducing personal responsibility for mediocrity. But here's the twist that makes this behavior so insidious. We don't primarily set out to ensure failure. We're willing to accept probable failure if it can be explained away. Think about that for a moment. We'd rather fail with an excuse than succeed without one. A landmark study from Stanford University involving 400 participants and published in the journal Cognition in September 2025 reveals the strategic sophistication behind self-handicapping. Researchers discovered that people deliberately impede their performance most often when they believe the handicap won't significantly affect the outcome, but will dramatically increase how others perceive their competence. It's a social calculation, not a personality defect. But why would intelligent, capable individuals actively collaborate in their own defeat? The answer lies in understanding what psychologist Stanley Cooper termed the evaluation the individual makes and customarily maintains with regard to himself. Self-esteem isn't just feeling good about yourself, it's the fundamental psychological infrastructure upon which we build our entire identity. And like any critical infrastructure, will go to extraordinary lengths to protect it. According to research published in January 2025 by psychodynamic psychologist Dr. James Tobin, self-sabotaging behaviors stem from what he calls the need for psychological homeostasis, a paradoxical preference for familiar discomfort over unfamiliar success. Our unconscious minds, shaped by early life experiences and internalized relationships, sometimes perceive achievement as more threatening than failure. William James, one of psychology's founding figures, argued that healthy self-esteem emerges from perceived competence in domains of importance. This path requires years of disciplined effort, vulnerability to failure, and courage to face genuine assessment of our abilities. It's demanding, it's uncertain. And for many, it feels unbearably threatening. Self-handicapping offers a seductive alternative. Preserve a tolerable self-image without the arduous work of genuine achievement. Here's where it gets psychologically fascinating. Research from UNSW Sydney, published in July 2025, demonstrated that self-sabotaging behaviors aren't random mistakes or temporary lapses in judgment. Dr. Philippe Jean-Richard de Bruxelles' team tracked participants over 6 months and discovered something striking. Most showed identical behavioral profiles when retested. These aren't just bad days, Dr. Jean-Richard de Bruxelles notes. They're stable traits, almost like personality types. The most common manifestations include chronic procrastination, delaying critical tasks until failure becomes inevitable, then blaming time constraints rather than ability, strategic substance abuse, using alcohol or drugs as convenient alibis for underperformance victim identity, embracing and maintaining narratives of helplessness that preclude responsibility, anxiety cultivation, actively maintaining anxiety disorders that provide socially acceptable excuses for non-achievement, perfectionism as paralysis, setting impossibly high standards that guarantee disappointment while protecting against genuine evaluation. A 2024 study presented at the Impact Psychology Conference identified the psychological predictors of self-handicapping: self-critical rumination, maladaptive perfectionism, and beliefs about uncontrollability. Conversely, adaptive perfectionism, setting high but achievable standards, actually protects against self-handicapping behaviors. Psychologist H.S. Baker observed students who systematically avoided studying through endless conversations and substance use. Their psychological calculation was brilliant in its self-deception. If an exam is flunked, it is only due to lack of study, not due to lack of ability. If, however, it is passed without study, it is doubly delicious, providing a good grade and confirming magical powers of brilliance. This is the hidden payoff that makes self-handicapping so addictive. If you fail, your true ability remains unmeasured and theoretically unlimited. If you somehow succeed despite your self-imposed obstacles, you've proven yourself exceptional. Either way, and you never face the terrifying possibility that your best effort might be insufficient. January 2026. Research from Grand Rising Behavioral Health confirms that this pattern, what they term fear of success, manifests when individuals unconsciously dread the responsibilities, visibility, and expectations that accompany genuine achievement. The behaviors aren't protecting us from failure. They're protecting us from the demands of success. But here's the brutal truth that eventually catches every self-handicapper. This strategy has an expiration date. As psychologist Edward Jones warned, while self-erected barriers make failure more conveniently explained, it's still failure. And failing performances can have a devastating long-range effect on the very self-esteem that self-handicapping is designed to protect. The great 20th century psychologist Alfred Adler referred to self-handicapping as accepting defeat in the interests of protection. He treated a 32-year-old man, intelligent, healthy, well-educated, who lived entirely at his parents' expense, supported by alcohol-fueled alibis. Adler's insight cuts to the bone. He had no defeat in society, for he did not enter it. No defeat in work, for he had no occupation. Subjectively, he triumphed over life, lived it upon his own terms entirely. But objectively, of course, the terms he obtained were almost the worst possible. As we age, excuses grow stale. Friends tire of offering sympathy. The fragile structure supporting our protected self-esteem stands exposed. We confront not just failure, but years or decades of self-authored meaninglessness. The power of self-handicapping lies in its invisibility to the self-handicapper. According to research by psychologists Raymond Higgins and Stephen Berglass, self-handicapping strategies are strategic while eluding conscious awareness. This self-deception isn't incidental, it's essential to the strategy's effectiveness. We cannot consciously acknowledge we're sabotaging ourselves while simultaneously using those sabotages as legitimate excuses. Recovery begins with painful awareness, recognizing that you've been complicit in your own defeat. The Harvard Gazette's December 2025 report on the new signaling theory of self-handicapping suggests this awareness is the first step toward effective intervention. Once we understand the situational factors that trigger our self-handicapping behaviors, we can begin to disrupt them. So here's the question. Only you can answer. What excuses are you cherishing more than your potential? What barriers have you carefully constructed, then hidden behind while calling them circumstances beyond your control? What version of yourself remains safely theoretical because you've never truly tested what you're capable of? The research is clear. Self-handicapping offers short-term psychological comfort at the cost of long-term fulfillment. It protects you from the pain of genuine evaluation while simultaneously guaranteeing you'll never experience genuine achievement. The path forward isn't comfortable. It requires confronting the possibility that your best effort might not be enough, that your abilities might have limits, that success might bring demands you're not sure you can meet. But consider the alternative: a life lived entirely on protective terms that are, objectively, the worst possible. The choice has always been yours. The question is, are you finally ready to stop choosing defeat?